Hey everybody, welcome to RSA 2025. I'm Darian Dehghanpisheh, I go by D, President of Protect AI, and with me is Rob Linger. Rob, from
Nice
Leidos.
to meet you.
Yep.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. We just announced a major partnership with you guys. Really cool opportunity to tell everyone what that partnership's about, what Leidos does, why it's important, how we're gonna go about securing AI together. So I guess let's start with you, your role, and then talk a little bit about Leidos and its mission.
Sure thing. So my name is Rob Linger, and I'm the Vice President of Information Advantage at Leidos. So I have purview over all things data, AI, machine learning, you name it. It's a broad scope, but it's a very exciting space to work in.
All the cool kid stuff?
That's right, all the cool kid stuff today, right?
Nice.
But Leidos, we're a 50,000 person organization, and we span the federal government, commercial, energy, healthcare, you name it, we work in the space. But we work to really provide cutting edge solutions to our customers' most vexing needs, right? We want to be sure to help really bring innovative and creative ways to solve the problems of today and tomorrow.
Yep.
And do that in a way that brings security and scale as well.
And you guys have a unique focus in kind of the more sensitive environments of the federal government. Talking defense, intelligence, real high-end national security side. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your unique background and what you've been doing in this AI space for our government partners, agencies, and the like.
Sure thing. So, just in my time at Leidos, I've worked in a number of different areas at different levels of sensitivity, right? From healthcare, dealing with PII and medical records, those sort of things, which is very sensitive, all the way up through defense systems, command and control systems, and those sort of things for DoD and the IC.
Got it. And so together we've been focusing a lot and starting this partnership in the IC or intelligence community, as a lot of people may not know. And the Department of Defense, very sensitive applications. We've talked a lot about model security. We've talked a lot about generative AI. I think most people would agree that AI is now a national security imperative. It's a requirement for an advantage. It's a requirement for economics. You name it, it's involved. What are some of the risks that are unique that you're seeing in the federal space, particularly as it relates to AI deployment and building of generative AI in these highly classified, very sensitive systems?
So interestingly enough, a lot of the risks that we see right now, they very much mirror what you see in your standard software deployments, right? You're going to have your supply chain issues. You're going to have your monitoring issues. You want to be able to do appropriate red teaming. You want to be able to make sure that the assets that you're deploying are the assets that you're testing with. There's a lot to the space that, luckily, at least in my opinion, luckily, mirrors what we already work with in making sure that our software is secure and scalable, right? It is really the same set of issues. It just requires a separate class of tooling that can still treat that vulnerability appropriately.
And I guess to that end, what are some of the things that we're seeing as adoption barriers? Because the intelligence community is a critical customer of ours. It was one of the first segments that the business went into. And it didn't surprise me that they were wanting the security of it, but it surprised me at the scale of which AI is already in place, right? And I would assume that you guys are seeing some of that same trends, but there has been this discussion around slowdown, if you will, or things that are not moving as fast. Nothing to do with politics and more to do with deployment security components. Are there any unique risks or any unique things that you're thinking of that are in this space that need to be addressed? I mean, obviously the tooling's important, but what are some of the more sensitive things that you worry about?
Certainly. So, when we start talking about, especially today, generally when somebody talks about AI, for the most part, they're talking about generative AI. Now, generative AI brings its own set of risks along with it. Outside of your standard, right? Is it going to be attacked type of risk, right? Because that's going to be there. But those attacks are more nuanced. You can have risks coming from the base models that you are employing to provide that generative AI capability. You can have different types of prompt injection attacks and those sort of things. But taking it all the way back, one of the big risks really is that generative AI is more, it's less descriptive, right? It's
Right.
not as 0 and 1.
That probabilistic
That's right.
outputs.
It is completely probabilistic, and you need to be able to monitor and put the appropriate guardrails in place to minimize that risk.
Got it. You know, it's funny because when we started the company in 2022, my co-founder and I, we walked into a room full of empty space. It was basically a room built for 4,000 people.
Well, that was ages ago, 2022.
3 years, I know, kind of crazy. And I remember thinking, you know, is this really a thing? Is security of AI a thing? Here we are in 2025, and the theme of the conference is AI is everywhere. Do you see that? And I think a lot of people would agree with that. Do you see that in the federal spaces? Is AI now everywhere, or is it going to be everywhere? And if so, like, how far out is that?
So it's going to be everywhere, and the question becomes at what pace does it happen? We're already seeing some of our customers that are just way out ahead of the crowd, right? Like, I'm very impressed with some of our federal customers on some of the solutions that they've developed and deployed, in a very rapid fashion. At the same time, you have other customers that are more concerned about some of the trust and the security, right? And they're taking things a little bit slower, but that's not to say they don't have the same desire, right? The desire and the hunger for this technology, and really the need for this technology to be able to gain or maintain an advantage, be it against an adversary or even internally, like budgetarily, all those sort of things come into play where AI is very important. So I have not heard one customer this year say, slow down.
Slow
right?
down. This is gonna be faster.
They're all saying, help us get there.
Yeah, it's interesting because a year ago, I think we were talking, and one of the things we were talking to intelligence customers about was this notion of, they were really hesitant to deploy generative AI models inside of a lot of theaters, inside of a lot of spaces. And the conversation turned to, well, if I had a really good analyst or a really good employee or a really good person as part of my agency that could be super effective, memorize 30% of everything that it's off, I wouldn't not hire that person. I wouldn't not deploy them on a mission. I would just watch them really, really carefully. And I'd make sure that I had all the guardrails and controls around them to make sure that I knew what they were doing, right? They're still a very effective partner. And I feel like the IC has come through that knothole to a large degree of like, yes, we are going to need to deploy that. And the reason I bring that up is it seems to be an interesting way to think about the future, right? Where we're moving from Gen AI to agents. And agents are exactly what we were describing. And I would imagine that most of our federal customers, our joint customers that we have together, particularly in these spaces, they want to take advantage of the capabilities that agents are going to create for them and afford for them, but they don't have the tools to monitor and manage them the way they would a human asset, right? Or a human person. But just how are you guys thinking about guiding customers with that?
Yeah, so I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? And a big piece of that puzzle is the fact that these models are getting more powerful and they're getting smaller, right? And so once they become smaller and smaller, they become more portable. Now, once they're more portable, you're going to find them in more places, right? You have more assets that you have to track. You have more systems that you need to manage. You have communication handoff going between agent to agent. How do you secure that, right? And I think that's really where the compelling story comes together of our partnership between Leidos and Protect AI is how we bring that trust and security into the space and do so at scale.
Yeah, and the products that we're, working on with you guys in terms of custom policies for things like controlling and managing the risk assessment of those models, monitoring, observing all the traffic and engagement of the agents and the models, with our layer offering, and the customization capabilities that Leidos brings to the table with your knowledge of what is required in those theaters, what's required in those spaces, I think is super compelling. And I'm very excited to see what that's going to bring forward to a bunch of the agencies that we're working with.
Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting time, that's for sure. Um, I'm looking forward to working with you all even more than we already have been. But yeah, the agentic space is going to be very compelling, and it's going to require that diligence. But we have to make sure that we provide that diligence in a way that does not negatively impact time to value. Because time to value is something that we're very sensitive about. We want to make sure that we're bringing capabilities to bear, and we want to do so quickly so that our customers can capitalize on those capabilities, because the space is moving at rocket speed. And if you
DeepSeek wasn't even a thing last year.
Exactly.
Right? Everybody thought we'd have global dominance, and turns out, not so fast.
That's right. That's right. So, the time to value, very important. And what we do together really allows us to provide that security and the scale without being a barrier to entry.
Yeah, and if you had one call to action for maybe people who are trying to think through how to do secure AI in the federal space, what would your ask be for people who are here today in the audience, who are watching this later or reading the show notes? What's your call to action? What do you want customers to do?
Like I said, we have some great customers, right? And I'd say keep leaning forward. That's the main thing. Keep leaning forward, and be confident that the tools and the technologies that we bring to bear, especially in partnerships like this, are there to ensure that you can get that time to value nice and low. You can take advantage of today's technologies today and be secure into the future.
So in short, don't slow down. Be confident that it can be secure and safe and trusted, and contact you or us.
That's right.
If you have a question. Yeah, either one of us. If you are in the IC anywhere in the Department of Defense, or just operating really sensitive, secure AI applications in some of the most interesting environments, reach out to one of us and we'll be able to help you deploy that.
That's right.
Thanks for being here, Rob. I appreciate it.
So always remember, secure your data, own your data, and observe your data.
There you go. Goes for AI models too. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.